This notebook right here completely changed the course of my life. I used to be somebody who struggled with going to the gym, struggled with binge eating. My life was a mess until I started using this notebook. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the 1 minute a day routine that I do that's completely changed everything about my life. It's not just randomly journaling. It's not a bullet journal, anything like that. I promise you've never heard of it before, and once you understand this technique I'm about to show you, it's going to change your life just like it did mine. And what I do with this notebook is I use it to track two numbers, and once you understand what those numbers are, you can track them yourself, and you'll see once you're tracking them, you're going to be able to make building habits easy, make becoming disciplined easy, and staying consistent is not going to be something that you have to fight for. It's just who you are. So I want to break down exactly what I'm tracking in my notebook. So a lot of you guys probably use a habit tracker app like this to track your habits. This is wrong. You don't want to use an app like that. You actually want to use something more like Reinvent. But before I built Reinvent, I was doing the routine that I'm about to show you in my notebook. So in your habit tracker app, this is probably what you've been doing. You track all of your habits. Like, so you might be like, oh, this is writing. So on Monday I wrote, Tuesday I wrote, I didn't write Wednesday, blah, 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 blah. And you do this for everything, right? You're just filling it out like this. And so what it does is like it builds a streak. And so you feel like, you're being disciplined, you're tracking your habits, but this is the wrong way to track your habits. Because the truth is, we're not just tracking our habits just to track them or just to build a streak or anything like that. We track our habits to get data about how we actually performed that week. And so what we want to be doing is we want to be tracking our habits, but we also want to be calculating a weekly score. So basically, there's two scores that we want to calculate. The first score is going to be our weekly completion rate. Then the second score is going to be called our per habit completion rate. I also call this the global score, and then this one the local score for each habit. So let me just actually fill this out so I can show you guys what I mean. Okay, so let's just say that this is actually how I actually performed last week. So first off, we're going to calculate the weekly completion rate, aka the global score. So how do we do this? First, figure out what is the total amount of habits that we actually could have done. So we have 4 habits, 7 days in the week. That means our total score, we could have gotten 28. Because there's 28 total habits that we could have done. Now we just add up the amount of habits that we actually ended up doing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 out of 28. That is our weekly completion rate, aka our global score. Now we're just going to turn this into a percent. That is 64%. So this week we scored 64%. Now what we want to do is you want to calculate our per habit completion rate, aka our local score. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 6, this is 4, this is 4, and this is 4. Right? So now we have both of these numbers. Now, why do we do this? Because we are going to make a habit decision based on how well we performed. This number literally tells us how well we performed this week. So we got a 64%, which is not good. Imagine you took a test in school and you got a 64%. That's not good. I think it's an F, a fail. These are the two numbers. I mean, technically there's a couple more than 2, but these are the numbers that you want to have. Why do you want to have these numbers? Because based on this number, at least let's first focus on the weekly completion rate, your global score, we can actually make an intelligent habit decision. See, the reason why it's so hard for you to stick to habits and build habits is because let's say you're starting a writing habit and you're starting at, let's say 10 minutes per day. You do well for 3 days and you're like, I'm just going to increase the habit because I've been doing so well. But the reality is you're making decisions based on how you feel, based on how motivated, based on, your feelings versus actually making intelligent habit decisions based on logic, based on data. And how you perform this week is your data. And so when we make decisions based on data, we're actually going to be making more intelligent decisions, which increases the chances that we actually stick to our habits over the long term. So we scored a 64% this week, and this score doesn't need to be turned into a percent. It can just be simply, 6 out of 7 or 4 out of 7, right? It doesn't need to be a percent. Now that we have these numbers, now what are the different decisions that we can make? Well, there are 3 types of weeks, and this is why we wanted to calculate this into a percent. The first type of week is called a push week. This means that you scored 85% or more, right? So 85% or more, we didn't get that. We got a 64%. That means we're in a repair week. This is below 70%, and the stabilized week is 70 to 84%. So yeah, now we know, the name depending on percentage, but what does it mean? If you are in a push week, what you're able to do is you're able to do two things. You can increase a habit difficulty, and then you can also add, okay, I shouldn't even write, but you can add a new habit. So you can do one of each. So you're basically able to do either two increases. What do I mean by increasing? Well, basically, I'm going to make other videos about this. When you're building habits, you shouldn't start a habit at its max level. Let's say you're trying to write an hour a day. You don't start at an hour a day. You start at a smaller phase level. So if I just show you guys what I mean, in Reinvent, you can go use Reinvent for free, reinventapp.io. This is a habit I'm trying to build. I go to bed at 10 p.m. I want to be somebody who goes to bed at 10 p.m. Right now, I go to bed at around 12. Actually, I go to bed at 12 usually. But I didn't start this habit at 10 p.m. I go to bed at 12:30. Now I go to bed at 12, and then I'll go to 11:30, 11. So working my way to 10 p.m. So we don't start at what the habit we want to build is. We want to start at a lower level. Why? I'm going to make other videos about this, but it's because if you ask yourself, like, honestly, do you think that you can go to bed at 10 p.m.? If I ask myself that for the next 7 days, I would probably answer, I don't know. Why? Because that's a prediction that your brain came up with, because it looks like your past behavior. I've been going to bed at 12:30. And it's decided, actually, the prediction is I am unsure, probably not, just because I haven't been doing it, right? So we don't force ourselves to do stuff that we don't believe that we can do. Why? Because that's acting against our self-belief. That's acting in force when we could be acting in power, acting with our self-belief. So I started it at 12:30 because when I asked myself, do I think I can go to bed at 12:30 every single night for the next 7 days? I was like, yeah, I think I can. So I started there, and then I increased. Now, when did I increase? I increased when, in my weekly review, I had scored an 85%. That meant I was able to increase a phase level of a habit. So when you score 85%, you're able to do two things. You're able to increase two habits. You're able to increase one habit, or you can increase one habit and add a new habit, or just add a new habit. So there's 4 different types of things that you can do in a push week. If you're in a stabilized week, no changes made. And if you're in a repair week, you might actually have to regress the phase level of a current habit. So let's just say this is like phase 2, 12 a.m. and I did really bad. I mean, actually, for this example, I actually did do really bad. I would basically regress. So I would go back to 12:30 a.m. Now, if we actually just like practically look at what this looks like, this Reinvent is the software that I built, because I used to do this all in this notebook, but like I was showing you, you have to manually calculate and like use a calculator and stuff, versus in Reinvent, basically like the daily tracker, you can see this is how my week has been going, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I've been freaking killing it all week. And if we go to my weekly review, it's automatically calculating it. So if I go to last week, I scored 85%. I go to bed at 12 a.m. I got 7 out of 7. 80 grams of protein, I got 6 out of 7. 2 hours a day, I got 5 out of 5 because I'm only doing it 5 days a week. And consumed 2100, I got 4 out of 7. I kind of flopped with that last week. But I still scored an 85%. And so what were the increases that I did? Well, I progressed to 2 hours and 30 minutes, because if we go to my phase level for 50 hours of deep work per week, I was at 2 hours a day last week, and I progressed this phase level. And then what's the other thing that I had done last week? I had also activated a new habit, journaling. And so for that phase level, this journaling habit, it's just literally just writing 1 sentence a day. So basically, this is why weekly reviews are important, right? I'm showing you like what it looks like on here, but if you don't want to use it in Reinvent, you can do it in a notebook like I used to do. So basically, every single week, you are tracking all of your habits, and then at the end of the week, you basically total up your weekly completion rate, and you get the score, right? 18 out of 28 is 64%. Now, if you have a habit that isn't every single day, instead, like let's pretend that this running habit, instead of me saying it's 7 days a week, my goal is for it to, I only run 4 times a week, right? So that means I would have actually done really well with that running habit last week. So instead, we're going to change the denominator. Instead of it being out of 28, it's actually just out of 24, right? Because this is 7 plus 4, so that's 11, plus 7 is 18. Wait, 18 plus, actually it's 25. Whatever. But basically what I'm saying is the denominator is based on the total amount of habits that we could have done that week. So if we changed the running habit from supposed to being daily, 7 days a week, to being only 4 days, we would change the denominator too, right? So you calculate your weekly completion rate, you turn it into a percent, that tells you what type of week you're in, and based on that type of week, you can make, either increases to your phase levels, add a new habit. But the reason that we want a number and to make habit decisions based on data instead of how we feel, because your brain will lie to you. Your brain will make you feel like you performed a lot worse than you did, or perform better than you did. It's not going to give you accurate data on how you actually performed, right? We don't want to be making habit decisions, making our habits harder, adding new habits just based on how we feel. It's inaccurate. So we want actual data. We want actual numbers to help us make these decisions. That drastically will increase how easy it is for you to build habits. Like, this is one of the number one things that I can teach you guys. So yeah, that's what I talk about in my book, Habit Theory. That's what I talk about in my book, Habit Theory. Go to ashleyfreebooks.com to read it for free. And if you want me to coach you, help you basically build habits using habit theory, you can book a free disciplined audit call in the description. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.